Will this new posture correction from Aliexpress improve finally my posture? What we will discuss. First, different kinds of posture correction. Then second of all, what a posture correction actually can do and what it cannot. Is there something such as optimal posture? And then fourth, we will try this out. This posture correction here is applied to the shoulders only, on the back, and then it pulls your shoulders back. The problem with this is that it can also pull your shoulders upwards because it doesn't have a string attached that actually aligns the spine. So as you have quote-unquote better posture, your spine shortens actually, and this is kind of the mechanism you might want to have. So if you want to have a mechanism like this, it would be nice if there was a string attached to this, and maybe to also a waist, to a belt that goes basically around your waist, and then it would attach your shoulders in some way to this here. So it would create basically a distance between your pelvis down here somewhere and also your shoulders. So ideally you want to bring these 3 points, the two of the shoulders and this one point that is basically an anchor point on your waist. You want to bring them slightly together, and as you do this you basically go upwards. Now I tried this and it actually is kind of nice to bring your shoulders back. The problem only is that after some time you then run around like this because it just goes upwards and upwards and upwards, because there is nothing also preventing this from kind of going back and going back. It also is not the easiest to attach, so if you have this here, then you first can shorten or lengthen it depending on what is ideal. And then ideally you have these on the outside, because otherwise these rub against your shoulders, and then you can apply it like this. So you put it on, and then already you have the problem that you now have your shoulders kind of tucked backwards. There's also the problem that it constrains kind of your blood vessels, because it attacks mostly in the front. And because it is also missing the other component over time, now this part here that actually should sit down here actually goes upwards, and then you kind of run around like this. So the posture correction then does not do its job and actually increases the nerd neck. And this is not very beneficial. Therefore I still have this, but I don't use it any longer. Now, what can a posture correction do and what can it not do? I think there are two aspects to increasing or optimizing your posture. Let's say a good posture or increasing posture equals optimizing posture for basically the good value. Then the first approach would be a passive approach, and the second one would be an active approach. Both have, I think, their value. So I would say the passive approach is to use a shoulder or a posture correction. What a posture correction do is, if you are passive and you are not moving, it basically alters your posture in a way that is then ideally more optimal. What is optimal posture we will discuss in the third point. Even though I don't have a background in sports science or something like this, I still think there might be some points I can make on this. Now, there's also the part where you have active posture correction, and this could be either you just reminding yourself again and again and again to have good posture, but as this relies on you reminding yourself that you have to have good posture, this system kind of falls onto nothing. So as you again over time then maybe don't remind yourself that you should have good posture, because the trigger, which is you realizing at this point in time that you have really bad posture, then this trigger is here, and then you try to improve your posture. If this is basically very good posture and this is bad posture, you try to improve your posture, you actively are reminding yourself, but over time you just forget about it, and then the posture regresses up until or towards its base level, whatever this is. And what one therefore could do is one could automate the notification. So one could set up a phone notification maybe every 20 minutes to increase basically or to optimize the posture. Now, there are already devices out there which either attach to the middle of this here or also to the back of your neck, which then whenever they are in a slight angle, so they basically have a accelerometer, I think, in them, similar to a smartphone, that can actually sense in which direction it is tilted, that can sense this and then sends a notification in terms of a vibration back to you. So you don't have to have a mirror in order to then have a trigger that then has you improving your posture. So this could also be an active approach. In general, one should also maybe distinguish between passive posture and active posture, not just the improvements of these. So passive posture would be the posture you have whenever you are not moving, and active posture whenever you are moving. So now, on the third point, can you actually improve your posture, or is there something like an optimal posture? I think the whole thing of a few videos on the internet that there is no such thing as optimal posture becomes ridiculous if you think about the fact that your spine is made up out of these discs and these vertebrae. So you have these vertebrae. In between them there is basically something that has a gelish consistency. Think of it maybe as flubber. You could also think of it as flubber or rubber. Now, if we put pressure on this like this here, then it doesn't move a lot. But if we now bend this thing, and of course there are these discs in between, we also have to keep in mind, if we now have it like this, and then we try to deadlift with a back like this, for example, then it's a lot easier for the whole stack to fall over, and for the things in between to fall out. After all, this is mechanics. As the center of gravity, or your head in this case, or also the weight that is distributed through your body, so you might be holding weight on your arms, and this then is basically going through your body and going through your spine, which holds your body kind of together, and then it's going into your feet and to the ground. And as you pull up in the deadlift, for example, and you do this with a rounded back, then this rounded back here might be somewhere, it might be like this, and somewhere it might be the other way around. But if it is totally rounded, then all the discs have the potential to have stress on one side, so it maybe might look like this, so it might go out, and then it might go in again. I do not have enough to make it fully round, so let's say it goes out to here, and then it goes in again. Now you have a very instable, or a very not stable construction here. But if you now are able to straighten your spine at least somewhat, then you can basically kind of align these as they were designed to. Of course, they are also designed in a double S-curve, so this is not entirely a good model of reality, because this here is just straight, whereas the actual thing is a line. This has also additional advantages, you could say, because it also acts as a spring load. This here is a grip strength trainer. If you push this down, there is this spring load that prevents kind of the whole thing from breaking. If you would push with a very large amount of force onto here, then this might eventually break. But this here, at least if it could take the same kind of force, does not break so easily. So it can take smaller forces, and then it kind of can just absorb the impact in some kind of fashion and then actually release it all again. So if you, instead of having your spine in you, would have a metal rod in you, then the metal rod would not be able to get any impact. So the impact would then be distributed among your joints, among your muscles, and this would maybe lead to bigger issues as an impact. For example, if you fall down from somewhere, or you are in a, let's just imagine a cat. A cat maybe might jump from here, and then it just lands. And as it lands, it basically expands and then it retracts again. It's in terms of the spring load and in terms of how different parts of you work. Also, you can think of this here. If you do push-ups like, or if you just hit your hand and you hit it just like this, then it kind of hurts. But if you have kind of the same impact, but you distribute it kind of onto your fingers and you land like this, you can also try to do these push-ups where you just fall over and then you push yourself up again. Well, I think it becomes clear that approaching a thing such as optimal posture is actually a good thing. I mean, if there is no such thing as optimal posture, then any posture would be good. If there is any posture that could be good, so if this is the base assumption, then you not only need basically one example where posture actually helps you. And if you don't happen to be someone who goes to the gym and happen to deadlift, then it becomes clear that all the kind of different random postures you could have might not be ideal. So it might not be ideal to do a deadlift like this or to do a deadlift like this, but instead you do it like this. And maybe even more optimal for the distribution of the weight and then also for the efficiency of the whole movement would be to then have to basically approximate what a good deadlift would look like. So your shoulders back and then you go downwards and then up again. So This applies for all kinds of movement. If you bend down and you have something in the back of your car and then you take it out and you bend over, this is actually a case where your spine is kind of bent over, and this is a case where many people's discs pop out. At least that's something I heard again and again. One could also very simply define the optimal posture in passive or in active mode, so in movement or in static mode, or in dynamic or in static mode, would be the posture that optimizes your health in the long term, that optimizes spine health, as well as just optimizes basically all of the different kinds of things that are dependent on good posture. In short, the posture that decreases your mortality the most, given the things you already are doing. So if you happen to work a construction job, for example, you already have loads on your body, but if you then distribute them better by having better posture, this might be more beneficial. We now enter the fourth point. And while we now unpack this here, we also might discuss why the other posture corrections get also very similar to this here. Even though I bought 4 of them, I still eventually just disregarded all of them. And one could argue that I made the same mistake again and again and again. Nonetheless, they also worked to a certain extent. What didn't work was the Velcro fastener. After some time, the Velcro fastener here just seemed to... So these loops that actually then cling kind of into the other fabric, over time just became basically obsolete, and they began to open, and they basically began not to work again. So what I am thinking with this one is maybe this would be more optimal, but if I'm looking at this material and at the forces that I usually apply to this, so I usually have it quite tight in order to also have an effect, then this might not be... It also is very light already, so this might not be something that holds up over time. So now, let's again maybe return to a more visual way of this. If on here is the top level, that's the ideal posture. And the ideal posture happens to have a very high value. And the low posture has to happen a very the bad posture has a very low value. If you wanted to incentivize yourself, then you would make up some kind of function that actually would have this outcome. Good posture, high value, bad posture, low value. I don't know if there is any metric, because posture is so complicated, and also because movement is so complicated. If you do some kind of parkour, you also want to have good posture during the parkour and not roll around on maybe this part here or on some parts of your spine, for example. So if this is time t that continues over time, because it's time, and this is a posture, basically reward function, let's call it p, then let's just say if you don't do anything, and that's kind of the case with me, if you don't do anything, then posture, let's just say we have any starting point. So I improve my posture up to this level. If you now don't do anything, that in my case at least, it seems that posture seems to regress to the baseline level. And the baseline level is bad posture. Of course, there might be even worse posture, but at least my baseline level is what you are currently seeing, like this here. So a head, basically that is a nerd neck, and also the shoulders moving forward again. Now, I've noticed over time that there are several variables contributing to this, and one of these I've tried to again eliminate as of recently. And one variable is sleeping on my stomach. If I sleep on my stomach, the surface that is covering the floor is basically the head. So the head is pressed a little bit backwards, but then in order for not my chest to have to carry all the weight that is actually going onto the mattress or onto the floor, my shoulders kind of move forward. And if I then stand up and I have the shoulders already moved forward, then this is kind of the baseline position I am in within 1/4 of the day. So the rest of the day, with stretching or additional stretching, I then have to reverse this. And also with strength training or resistance training in the gym, I then have to spend kind of all day in order to reverse this, only to then reverse back into the bad posture overnight. And this, I think, is a game I can never win. So what I recently tried is again removing my mattress. Because if I sleep on a mattress, then I sleep on my face, because I can sleep easier on my face, on my stomach. And this also seems to be not ideal in terms of allergen uptake, so I do have a slight dust allergy. Something else to consider is that if you sleep on your face actually is in, or the skin on your face is kind of in a teared position all the time. So in a folded position, you could also see. If you then have it over time, let's say a fourth of your life in this folded position, maybe your eyes, maybe your nose, then over time, your folds actually might increase in their depth. So compare this to you just sleeping on the back of your head. This might be a little bit better because there is just no additional stress on this. And for some part at least, your skin could be modeled as a mechanical part that kind of over time gets more wrinkly and more foldy, if foldy is a word. So the question is, how can we return into a higher level of posture again and again and again? Through maybe reminding ourselves active to actually increase our posture, to maybe stretch 10 minutes a day. If I stretch 10 minutes a day but I still sleep on my front in the night, then I still regress to a worse posture than would be optimal. So the question is not what would be slightly better in this case, but what would be actually optimal, because if I then deadlift, and I deadlift maybe 90 kilograms currently, and I want to increase this to 100 or 120, then I have to have my things aligned here. My things in terms of all the different extremities that are attached to my body, because otherwise my disc might actually pop out. And if it doesn't, and I do train suboptimally over time, over the next 10 years, then, or I do nothing about my nerd neck, then there actually might be really bad consequences of this, like a shortening of my lifespan or like one of my discs popping out. So the question is, how many different levers can we pull in order to pull posture up at different parts in time? One lever is that I don't sleep on the floor anymore. This also means I cannot sleep that long to some extent, because I actually, at a certain level of sleepiness, I cannot make a function up until, or this quick. At a certain level of sleepiness, it seems that if I then additionally have a mattress, then the sleep satiety seems to be kind of increased. So the possible sleep satiety, not the actual sleep satiety. If I then sleep maybe, let's say 8 hours, if this is a spectrum, and here we have the 6 hours or 7 hours I would sleep basically on the floor, then it seems that I can increase this with a mattress, but probably the sleep also becomes less optimal, and especially less optimal in terms of the posture, because then I wake up and I have these forward pronated shoulders. So by sleeping on my back again and on the floor, I'm kind of forced to sleep on my back, because that's the only really comfortable position you can sleep in. And second of all, what I do also have is that I touch my shoulder, or the middle of my chest, not my shoulder, every now and then, and I just try to imagine this pulling me upwards, because this motion of my pelvis also going kind of backward, and basically think of it as shortening the distance between your shoulders and also the point down here, and you just want to shorten this distance. So basically you want to extend the spine forwards, which actually shortens this distance. Another kind of mnemonic is that you just push or pull a string up from here, and then you align your body. But I think it kind of misses on the forward pronation of the rest of your body. Since I do have dark clothes, it's also not that very nicely visible. And another lever to increase the level of my posture over time at multiple points in time in order to get it to a higher level. So let's maybe plot this again. If I do have a certain level of posture, and then over time I do absolutely nothing, then it might trend downwards. If I now push it up again, then it might land here. If I then additionally push it up again with stretching, then it might land here. If I additionally push it up with not regressing to a bad position or a bad posture overnight, then I might land up here. So over time, the question is not what is the ideal point of posture on this spectrum, but over time, the idea is to approximate basically the ideal posture, and maybe to vary around, maybe in a sinus curve around this. Posture might regress, but as you then sleep again, it might become better. As you then pull it up again with stretching, it might become better. As you train your back compared to your front, this also might increase your posture again. Of course, it might not look like this, but at all of these points in time, maybe not here like this, but maybe much more like this, then you basically increase the baseline level of your posture, that is the average of your posture over maybe, let's say 7 days, maybe let's say a given year. If you can improve your baseline level or your average level of posture over a given year, then that already can be seen as an improvement. And again, it doesn't have to be super optimal posture, it just has to be an increase, even though we try to, or I at least try to approximate the optimal posture. So now, finally, let's have the fourth point, and let's try this. So I bought this in L, and I think it was also for my size. So now we already can see that this is very, very light, and if I now would tear this apart, then I probably, or would try to tear this apart, then I probably could. We also have this here, which I'm not sure what this is for, maybe to carry it. So there are also two things that are kind of sewn or sewed in here, which you cannot take out. This was a kind of an issue with the other ones because you actually could take out these. So they seem to be two kind of plasticky things that actually just align this here and not make it fold into itself. Now, I'm not entirely sure how this goes around, but we can test this by, okay, this attaches like this. So therefore now I first attach the waist, and I now can attach the waist. I tried wearing this under the shirt, or wearing these posture corrections under the shirt, and I actually tried wearing these straight all the time apart from sleeping, and this to some extent also worked. But now I fail to see where these straps actually go, because there is no mechanism such as here where they actually fold back. So I took a look at the marketing pictures, and it seems that you fold these basically down here, then loop them through this thing here, and then you can attach this here to the front on this Velcro fastener on the other side here. So let's try this out. So as a first step, I have looped them through the back here, and now I can get in like this, left shoulder and then the right shoulder, or no, and in here goes the head. So well, so let's maybe try this again. So first I put it on my back, then I take one of these, and now first I attach this belt here, which is not very tight, so this might be only a very not aggressive posture correction. And then I take one of these here and push it through the back here, and now I can basically adjust the strength. There also is kind of additional padding missing. The other ones had kind of an additional padding you could actually move on this line here. I just didn't find my old posture correction. They might be somewhere on the I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this box. So I just attached this here, and I just moved ever so slightly. And now that's it, it's loose. So basically I can throw this into the trash because it doesn't work at all. The Velcro fasteners just don't hold any of the force that I would actually apply by having this like this, and then I could actually attach it to here. Or maybe I do need to attach it to this middle thing here. So let's try to do this. And now I still have to attach or readjust these. And now it is actually pretty strong. So now I have my core here, and I actually am changing shirts in order for you to be able to see this better. I should have done this maybe sooner. So now again we try this on. We put one loop around here, and then the other loop around the other shoulder, and then we just try to get the waist belt on. I also tried using a normal belt as a waist belt, kind of, but it didn't really work with other posture corrections. And now we again have to get these looped through. Some people might have problems actually getting there to this point on their back. I don't know. I often do these back stretches, and then you need to get into the zone where you have this Velcro fastener thing here in the front. Otherwise it wouldn't work. I think it's this zone here that has the Velcro fastener, and also this zone here on the other side. So of course, ideally you want to first have these two aligned symmetrically and maybe go on top of each other, and then it actually only goes onto one of these because one of these is only in front, and then you can attach or can apply as much force as you want and then go like this. Now in every shoulder or posture correction that you apply too tight, you might actually constrain the vessels, which might mean that you actually get a pump. So you might also be able to use this for blood flow restriction training, which I did in the past. But at least if I'm breathing in here, I can only breathe in if I kind of put my shoulders back a little bit. There also seems to be some problems with what this belt does to your waist if you have it too tight. So if you have a certain amount of space in there and then you just attach something like this, but you don't have like the core strength to counter this, then the rest of what is in there just might move over time. If you apply this again and again and you wear this all the time, might move to different positions, which might not be ideal. In my case, I had a few issues with this, but I won't describe them further, I think. What might become a problem soon is that these don't have additional straps here or additional padding, which otherwise means that soon this skin here in between your pectoral muscle or in between your chest area, not necessarily only the muscle, and then your arm might become sore just because of wearing this. Now, to counter this effect, you might also just wear a shirt, but I found that if I wear a shirt and I wear this on top and it's summer, then it looks ridiculous, and nevertheless, I want to wear this, so I usually just put it one layer beneath and just wear it basically on my skin and then have it attached. If you then have summer and your skin becomes sweaty and then you have this constantly rubbing on your skin, this might be a problem. I tried this nonetheless, and in the summer of 2 years ago I actually constantly wore this posture correction even while working as a bike courier a few times a week, and it actually did help me in order to get my baseline of posture into a higher level, basically, as we discussed earlier. Now, the one big thing about posture corrections is that it actually kind of replaces the muscles. It doesn't build them up. So if now something is constantly pulling you back, even though it also might just act as a reminder, because the reverse, so if you go forward, this might just cut into basically your skin here. So the only way to counter this is to actually retract your back muscles and move your shoulders back. But it doesn't really replace what is otherwise basically done by your body. It doesn't replace the active part of posture. It just kind of acts as a tool, I think, to teach you what the different kinds of movements actually look like. So if you just are doing like a deadlift like this, then in order to make you feel what a deadlift with your shoulders retracted actually looks like, that actually then puts better impact or distributes the impact better onto your spine with your shoulders back, then just in order to feel this, what it feels like, putting a posture correction also on while working out, at least in my case, seemed to be beneficial. Nonetheless, even if you wear this all the time, which is not recommended, so there is a build-up phase recommended, just wear it for a few minutes, then maybe 10 minutes, then maybe 20 minutes, then maybe you can wear it while standing up and working. What is also noticeable here, for example, in my standing setup is that if I now try to move my arms forward in order to write down or type on the keyboard, that my arms are just a little bit too short, because my arms are now farther back. So if my arms are here compared to here, of course the length of my arm has to make up for the rest of this, for the rest of the distance until I reach my keyboard. So the reason why keyboard writing is so bad, even if you have your keyboard down here, is that your hands are maybe not meant to be in front of your body all the time. Because if you move your hands in front of your body like this, then you have to move your shoulders forward, because otherwise there is not really much motion. But maybe the better position would be this. So now if you put your shoulders back and you still want to write, you're beginning to see that maybe it's not the optimal position. So splitting the keyboard apart for both hands might be a better solution. I just didn't come up with a good solution yet, and most keyboards also have it combined. Similar to how a notebook, because the screen as well as the keyboard have to oh, I just recorded the sneezer also. Because the screen, that is for your eyes, as well as the keyboard, that is for your arms, have to align in or converge in this point that actually combines these two elements into something that you could fold up, you then are looking down and having this here. So basically the line of sight, but also the line of where your arms go, have to converge in this dimension and in this dimension. So either you have to move your arms up here if you want to have a notebook at the eyesight level, or you have to move your line of sight down to where your arms are usually at. And in addition, then, because the keyboard is cramped in, you have to rotate your shoulders forward, because otherwise you cannot reach this distance. So it's basically this position here, which is not really ideal, I think. The posture correction itself only cost a couple of euros, I think 7 or 8 euros on Alibaba, not on Alibaba, but on Aliexpress. And because many products are already manufactured in China, I figured this time I could just as well buy something directly in China, compared to somebody buying it in China in large quantities and then selling it to me at a higher margin on Amazon. So the previous posture corrections were like 18 or 20 or 25 euros. So basically I paid almost triple the price for the same thing, just because I didn't buy it on AliExpress. So I figured I might try it. And it actually was today, after I think 40 days or maybe 2.5 weeks in my letter.